Okay, we also have keyboard tracking. So of course the keyboard is controlling the filter cutoff, which you undoubtedly know. So the lower you go, the darker the filter will be, the more closed the filter will be. The higher you go, the more open it'll be. It's hard to demonstrate on a keyboard of this size, but you can kind of hear that this is brighter than this. So that's awesome. And you can also do the wonderful trick that I always encourage people to do, is when you put your filter into self-oscillation and it's keyboard tracking, you can play the self-oscillation as notes. We only have one oscillator going right now, so the other oscillator you're hearing, the sine wave oscillator, is the filter self-oscillation, giving you sort of an organ sound, which is cool. When you bring down the resonance and turn up that, sounds fantastic. Anyway, let's move on to the envelope section. It's your traditional standard envelope. I'm sure some people are wondering why there is a sustain slider, but the sustain slider, because it's a level, I mean, it just makes sense. First of all, I mean, sustain is a level. It's not, these other functions have to do with time. This is a level. So yeah, but I always start out playing with the sustain all the way up, but we can definitely make an actual envelope. I have it set to the wrong setting. Now we'll hear an actual amp envelope. So I have the attack at 0, and you can hear the decay there. Sounds exactly like a cello. Okay. And of course we can bring the release up. Okay, and of course we can always bring in the sustain. Okay, on to the next section, the output. Here's the volume knob. Okay, we're done. No. There's a switch here, which you saw me switch when I wasn't actually using the envelope. You can set the VCA to envelope, where the envelope controls the VCA, or you can switch it to keyboard release, which, according to my understanding, is basically the gate, so that when you play a key, the VCA opens, and the envelope can be directed to filter, so that the filter effects can be doing their things without affecting the VCA. So that's really helpful. So if we turn up envelope amount, you can hear the envelope affecting the filter, but not affecting the VCA. I don't know about you, but I'm sitting here just, I forgot I'm demonstrating because I was just listening to the tone right there. It's so warm and thick and creamy. It's amazing. And you hear people say that about synthesizers, but with this, it's the thing that all the synthesizers aim for when talking about words like creamy or fat. It's this. Okay, there is a spring reverb on this, which I think is amazing and bizarre, but it's always fantastic. It's a weird inclusion, but it's a great inclusion because, like you just heard, you immediately are transported to a certain era of desirable sound. And it's just, and again, this is a spring wheel. There's literally springs in this device. So you're getting the real electromechanical effect of springs. And adding that to the analog sound, you've really got what you would want if you're looking for actual analog sound. And the fact that it's Moog, of course, makes it even better analog sound. So let's head on over to modulation. We kind of touched on the pulse width modulation amount, but you can also, I've turned up the mod wheel here, so the modulation section is activated, and we can direct the modulation to the pitch amount, or to the pitch. Okay, I've just turned, you may have noticed I turned the rate up, and the rate just kept going up and up and up. And it's because they've hidden a full-on oscillator in the modulation section. That's why it's not labeled LFO, because it's not an LFO. It's an oscillator that goes down into the LFO range. It goes very, very high. So you get a huge range of modulation. Goes all the way down to the clicks. You can hear it. We can also apply this to the filter. And I mean, one of the things you really want in an analog filter is to be able to modulate it with an audio range oscillator, because it adds thickness, it adds breadth and warmth. So we've got that option here. And of course, you can do a lot of effects with that as well. We also have several different waveforms. It's not just a sine wave, which would be consistent with a lot of analog synthesizers, but we have a sine wave and a sawtooth, reverse sawtooth, and square. And of course, all of these different waveforms, when you speed them up into the audio range, are going to sound different. So there's a lot of modulation opportunity there. But as we were talking about, I have to get into the cables here, because so this oscillator, this modulation oscillator, goes in the audio range. Why not use it in the audio range? So this connects to what I was talking about earlier. Nick pointed this out to me. You take the wave out of the modulation and connect it to the noise in, which is that basically third channel. When you do that, if you have the modulation oscillator going fast enough, you get an actual tone. Now you'll notice just now when I was playing that there wasn't any frequency. We have to give the modulation oscillator the frequency we want it to have. So we take the keyboard out from the ARP sequencer section, which is the voltage coming off the keyboard, and put that into, I believe, rate in, and that should give us an oscillator controlled by the keyboard. And because you have control of wave shape, it's the same, these are the same wave shapes. You'll go to sawtooth, reverse sawtooth, and square. So it's not a 2-oscillator synthesizer. It's a 3-oscillator synthesizer, should you choose to use it. It's kind of like the Mini Moog in the sense that the modulation oscillator is also an oscillator, but it's not labeled that way on this synthesizer. get this incredibly big, huge 3-oscillator rich sound. You are sacrificing noise, and you're also sacrificing low frequency modulation, but it's probably worth it for you. They have not forgotten to give you some performance opportunities. Oh, before we talk about the performance opportunities, let us talk about utilities. Since we're now using patch cables, the utilities right here, the mult, of course, is a mult. You take a signal, you put it into it, and you can distribute that single signal elsewhere to other functions, so that's really convenient. We also have a controllable high-pass filter. So we can take, for example, the output from the filter, put it into the high-pass, and take it back out. And I'm just going to put it into the VCA, so you can do more complex shaping of sounds. The high-pass filter cuts out the low end. The low-pass filter cuts out the high end, so you can do bandpass effects with both of them. So for once, you don't have to settle for just the typical Moog big low end sound. You can get some tinny, more nasal sounds out of this thing, which is really broadens the typical scope of a Moog synthesizer. So that's fantastic.